Busch Series champion, and an all-around nice guy with a great sense of humor. Bobby Labonte has gone to victory lane in just about everything he's ever raced. He's also known as the little brother to two-time NASCAR champion Terry Labonte. He can be seen weekly on Fox Sports giving his expert analysis on all things NASCAR. Bobby Labonte goes off track to talk about growing up in Texas, working his way into NASCAR, his relationship with his famous brother, and much more. And I'm so excited to welcome in this next guest. Well, he's the NASCAR champion, but I also get to call him coworker in a way. Hey, Bobby Labonte, how are you?
I'm good, Jamie. How are you? It's so good to see you. And we are coworkers. We don't see each other on a daily basis, but it's obviously that we work for a great company, and we're getting to go back racing here shortly.
That's exactly right. It's funny, we are coworkers, but we're never on the set together, and we have totally different jobs. You, of course, being an analyst, and with all the craziness that's been happening, the 10-week hiatus with NASCAR, what all have you been doing just to stay busy? I know you have side businesses as well, though.
Yeah, we kind of hunkered down right as Atlanta at the same time as Atlanta. I was in Florida 2 weeks prior to that at a race in Sebring. So my wife and I, we came home from that. She went to Road Atlanta to do some work for a company that we have, a client that we have for our company. She comes home from Atlanta, and we just kind of zeroed in after we watched all this stuff kind of coming this way. We zeroed in on staying home. So we have stayed home since then. So fortunately or unfortunately, we have 16 acres of land and a house and everything in it that needs a lot of TLC. So for these 10 weeks, I have, as we said a little bit before, I've got a set of clothes I use to clean the house. I've got a set of clothes I use to work outside. And so I've been out in the woods, or I've been building this and doing that. So we've been staying busy. Our companies we're waiting for racing to go just like everybody else is. But we've been staying busy here, eating a lot at home, just busy around the house. And, we've got a great house. We've got really good paradise here minus ocean. So we're doing good here in High Point, and we're just kind of loving life, but can't wait to get outside a little bit ourselves.
It's been interesting, Bobby, in talking to NASCAR drivers, and I think it's an athlete thing as well. You guys, you have your ways, you have your structure, and this kind of threw the structure out the window. So how has that been for you to be home so much, first and foremost, but just to find some kind of normalcy when you're out of your rhythm?
It is difficult. Like I said, we were Florida, Road Atlanta. We were going to be back in Road Atlanta for a SVRA race. We were going to be in St. Pete. We're actually headed to St. Pete. We're going to be in California. We had already had a flight. So you think of when this happened, we had flights to go to LA, or not LA, but San Francisco, St. Pete, Florida, and all this stuff. And it happened. So, and that's just our lifestyle. And we've done this. My wife and I, we traveled. This is just our life. This is what we do. And I'm telling you, when that stops, for us, it does get us out of sync. And I feel like I'm out of sync days because I wake up and I'm like, I'm not going to the airport. I'm not going to the studio today. I'm not, Wednesday or Tuesday when I go to the studio, I'm not doing that, or a Friday or Saturday. So it takes me a while to kind of get settled in, and I'm not settled in yet, which is good because I don't want to get settled into this. I love being at home, but it really does mess you up. The iRacing thing helped, but it's hard to find, or hey, I've constructed something worthwhile, so but I can't wait to be with friends and family and all that, and do things like that you feel like you want to either be a part of their life or hopefully help somebody out or be a part of it. So anyway, looking forward to getting back to that, but it's been a little trying here at home for me.
Yes. Well, I know that you definitely aren't done with racing. You're still so competitive. You talked about the iRacing. You've been doing that, but tell me about any kind of other racing maybe that's on the horizon. You were doing the Euro Series for a while. Is that a possibility maybe? Do you still want to do something like that?
I don't think that's going to probably happen. We definitely want to go back to Europe. We got a lot of friends over there. But at the same time, what I want to do is really get to the point of where right now we've got an opportunity, and it happened last year. Modified at Bowman Gray, and if it works out next weekend, I might race at Ace Speedway, in a NASCAR modified series. So between that and then the SVRA series, which is like vintage cars and stuff like that. I plan on doing a few of those and maybe a Trans Am race off and on. So, for me, I had a fairly busy schedule throughout the year. I don't know if it's just going to get busy in a short period of time or if it's going to stay busy or not, but racing locally here, or whether it's, I think we definitely have one planned for COTA later in the year. So racing in that, hopefully we'll get to do some of that stuff. So you never know. iRacing is, I've got to do some iRacing. I got a little bit better at it, but that's a different element. It's on a containment area in my room, in my office. So I'll just do that for fun for a while.
Well, you're talking about racing locally, and for your competitors, it must just be like, wow, I'm racing against Bobby Labonte, but not just the NASCAR champion. You're a newly minted Hall of Famer as well, Bobby. So, congratulations. I know I've seen you at least once since then, but let's go back to that moment. You're part of the class of 2020, which was very stacked, by the way, including your former team owner, Joe Gibbs. What was that evening like? Tell me how it went.
Well, leading up to that was probably the most fun and memorable because you start to put all your career all in one. So as I posted on Twitter the Thursday before that, a picture of my dad, my brother, and me, I was 2 years old and I'm at a racetrack. So you think of when you're 2 years old, your older brother, which is your hero, your idol, your dad, which is your hero, that from two until then, this is what you've done. It's not a job. Jobs don't last that long, but careers, family does. So for me, getting to that point, looking back and seeing from that 2-year-old age to 5-year-old and going through stages and heartache and good and winning and losing and whatever it might be to that point with your family, that was what meant so much to me. So leading up to that was like all the memories and all the emotions that you went through. And then obviously getting up and just going through the protocol of talking about it. But I had it so much in my head of what had happened and how exciting it was that when you got up there to talk about it, there's nothing that could have stopped me because it just came out like it just spewed like so. It was so good because I just knew exactly how it was going to be and I've lived it. And so that was so much fun. And enjoying that night was amazing with my family. And all the peers that you have and all the people I've worked with in different places. And you just, I love being a part of that, being a part of NASCAR, being a part of that family. And so leading up to that night was that, and the night of, and the day after to see all the Tony and Joe and Waddell and all the things that went into the play at the Hall of Fame in your car. And things that I didn't know was happening, got emotional about that I didn't think I'd get emotional about it. And the way that Winston Kelly and his crew did everything, and it came just everything was such a breath of fresh air and surprising at times that it struck me as like I can't believe this is happening to me. So anyway, it was an amazing time, and unfortunately I want to go back down there to look at it again because I need to remember that what I saw that day and recollect it a little bit differently, but we'll have to wait a little bit to go back and see it.
Well, what I loved about it, and I read this story that your dad was actually supposed to induct you, but it ended up being your brother Terry. How did all of that happen?
Yeah, well, we walked in the room Friday morning when they were putting up chairs and they were still building it. We walked in there, Terry and my dad and I, and we kind of started to slowly walk in the building. And we went about 30 or 40 feet. My dad stopped and he looked at the camera. He looked at the projector and he looked at all the chairs. He turned around, looked at me. He said, "I think you need to get him to do this." So it was pretty much like, "I'm not doing this." Okay, all right. So we had a backup plan, and Terry and I were like, "Okay, all right." So anyway, it was. I wanted him if he could have and felt good about it. Of course, I wanted him to, but I knew Terry would do it, and I wanted him to do it as well. So I had a plan for both of them to be out there, but as it turned out, just Terry did it, which worked out just fine as we kind of made the deal on the fly, you might say.
You and Terry seem like you guys have such a good relationship. And we've seen brothers, come along through NASCAR, race against each other, the trials, the tribulations, the fallouts. I mean, what has it been like your entire life, basically? You looked up to your brother, but then you ended up competing against him, big time competing against him. What has your relationship been like throughout the years, and what is it like today?
Well, I think what helped us is obviously my parents. I mean, they, we were. I mean, I don't know what. I think it's normal. You just do it that way, or you don't you treat your older brother or whatever, how you treat people, your older brother. My parents, I guess they instilled that in both of us, obviously at a young age. But we really never raced against each other. That was probably a key, was we never raced against each other until 1991. And I mean, it's been a long time ago, but we were of age. We never, as kids, we never competed against each other. We were in different classes until we got to the Busch Grand National Series. That was like, hey, this is the first time I ever raced against you. Yeah, they were like 28 years old or 25. It's like, oh wow, it's kind of weird. So we never did that before. So we were always a big enough age gap. And but growing up, he always looked after me. And then when I started racing local tracks here, he put me in my place as far as what I should do. Okay, I got it. He helped me get a car, a truck, and helped me get to the tracks and all that stuff. So obviously, when we came racing against each other, I mean, I don't know how else to think about it, but I mean, it was every race that I would always sit there and go, all right, if I'm leading, if I'm last, whatever the case is, where's Terry at? Where's Terry at? You know what I mean? Always had a sense of where he might be. I'll tell you, I never forget the Brickyard in 2000. I forgot about this for a while until late last year, but so he ran so many races in a row, whatever the number was, and he's the Iron Man, Iceman Iron Man. So, but he got hurt at Daytona. He ran Pocono, kind of halfway witty about himself, not sure about his vision was bad. So we go to Indy and he couldn't run Indy. He couldn't race. So Gary Dehart comes to our car during practice. And Jimmy Makar and I are standing there, and Gary's in tears, says, hey, Terry can't drive. What? Take off running to the trailer, and Terry's up in the hauler, and he's got vertigo, or a type of vertigo, right? So he can't go down to the corner and focus. So everything gets blurry. So anyway, we're crying. Now we're all crying. So it's like, man, so they got Todd Bodine to drive the car. So as fast forward through the race, I won the race. Okay. So as all this happens, I come down pit road after the race is over. No burnouts for me. I didn't do any of that stuff. I come down pit road, and the first person that come to my car was Terry. And I got to thinking, all of a sudden, emotionally, I went, this is the first time in, I don't know how many, 500, 600 races or whatever the number was, that he wasn't in the same race as I was. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
you think of, I mean, I that really kind of reflected back on Terry and I and our relationship. So to talk back about our relationship is how much he came, he didn't go home obviously, but he came there. I mean, he was excited that I won. I was always excited when he won. We were in it as a family, and whether we're not racing today, I got to call him here in a little bit to learn how to teach me how to cook a brisket. That's how much I love my brother. So it's like,
Oh,
all right, how's this work again? Should I do this for how long? So that's just how our relationship is. So I might not talk to him for 2 weeks, but it's we're always into each other and making sure each other are okay.
and looking at some notes, getting ready for this interview, I just was reliving some of these moments between you two. I mean, the moments where you win and he wins the championship, or he wins and you finish second. What's one of those that stands out to you about you guys both competing together in a race?
Well, the Atlanta race was obviously the most, was one of the most iconic wins for me and him at the same time. And our parents being in victory lane at the same time with two brothers, then I can only think of Kyle and Kurt Busch doing this. One wins the championship at Homestead, the other one wins the race at Homestead or Phoenix or whatever it might be as time goes on. Because you can't have two winners in the same day except on that situation. I mean, championship and a winner of the race, if they're not the same, that's the only way, right? So that was one that obviously sticks in my mind and everybody's mind, and that happening that way and how it happened and how I was able to win my first race of the year, the last race, and it was a script that it's scripted, but we didn't script it until after it was over with. Two is at Charlotte when I win my first race, he finishes second, and I mean it's almost like it kind of got lost in the shuffle, but he finished second, and it's like that's cool. I'm winning my first race, and it's so ironic that my brother's right there behind me. Now he is about 8 seconds behind me, but he's behind me. So, which was kind of cool. But my third one is actually at Michigan, and I don't remember which win it was, but I won 3 races there. But in our Busch Grand National car the day before, uh, I used to build all of our shocks for the cars, for our Busch Grand National Series cars, right? So on Saturday afternoon, he goes to practice his Cup car, and he don't like the way it feels. So he tells Gary Dehart to go get the shocks off of the Busch Grand National car, puts it on the Cup car, and that's what he races on Sunday. Okay, I win the race. He finishes second. So in victory lane, I mean, we're there celebrating our win. I told Jimmy Makar, I said, Jimmy, let me tell you something. This is awesome, but I built the shocks on the car that finished second today. That was almost as more exciting to me than winning the race, because how many guys do that or have done that, you know? So here, the shocks, the Penske shocks that I built for Terry's car Saturday, they put them on his car for Sunday because he liked them better. And I mean, I could probably go back in folders and files and figure out if they were double aggressive 10 over 1140s or whatever they could have been back in the day. But I thought, to me, that was the coolest thing that I did for my brother, that he actually used on a Cup car. That's just kind of fun for me.
That is so cool. And that's a cool fact about you too, Bobby. Your way to NASCAR wasn't just driving all the time. You were a fabricator, you built cars. Take me through that process. I mean, did you know that you wanted to be in NASCAR? Did you know you would get there, or were you just doing these jobs because that's what it took at the time?
Good Lord, I don't know if we have time for all of it, but I can tell you, I can tell you that I never, I never thought that I would be doing this to get me to that. I was doing this to get to the next smaller step and the smaller step. I mean, you always hope that you would get there. I guess I can look at it that way. But whether it was busting tires or pulling interliners out or learning how to fabricate, learning how to weld, ordering parts, machining stuff, building cars, and all this stuff, you know, I just was my path that I had to take. I mean, all we had is what we had, and we built with what we got. So I didn't know that it was going to take me to that point, but I mean, it was the path that we had to take. So I guess that's, again, I didn't, as people ask me today, if their son or daughter's racing, they say, how can my kid get to that level? I said, well, don't do what I did, because what I did then doesn't necessarily play into today. You know what I mean? It's a different way you do things. So,
Yeah.
but I was so glad that I was able to do that. And you think about, with my brother again, with my dad, and then all the other people that we met along the way, and like at the banquet, I had a lot of people there that I worked with in the '80s that came to the banquet, because I wanted them, because they were a big inspiration in my life to what structured me for the '90s and the 2000s. Um, but yeah, learning all that stuff was probably a blessing and a curse, because now because then I had to build the shocks for the Busch Grand National team, because I was the only one that knew how to build them, because that's what I did. So anyway, but it was I tell you what, it's exciting to look back at what we did, what was able to do, and then this, and then I told the story earlier today that 8 months ago, I'm in a simulator at Dallara for NASCAR, testing the new car for tomorrow, the new next gen car. So to me, in my head, I sit there and I think about when I was doing this, and I still get to do that. And it's like all this stuff in between. It's like, man, that's a long time. That's the career. That's not a job. That's your passion that you want to do. So when I go back to it, that was the passion I had, was to learn how to work on cars that my dad instilled in me, learn how to drive them better, learn how to work with people or do whatever it might be, and be with people, and win, and learn how and to do so much more, and continue to do that. So that's a fun part about all this even today.
So let's go back to the beginnings. You and your brother, obviously, Texas boys from Corpus Christi, Texas. So how did two Texas brothers make that journey to North Carolina? At what point did your family decide that it was time to move to the racing capital?
Well, my brother was racing at local short track. We raced quarter midgets for years, and then when Terry was old enough to race stock cars at the age of 15, but he said he was 16, he raced CC Speedway, 57 Chevy, then got a Camaro, raced some more in the mid 70s, and raced in Houston and San Antonio, sometimes Shreveport, Austin, Corpus, back and forth, Friday, Saturday night, depends on who was racing when, where. And it kind of got to the point where my dad had spent all the money. We really don't have enough money to go. We went to Mobile, Alabama for the, I don't know what the name of the race, World 300, all these top name drivers, Bobby Allison, Red Farmer, Freddie Fryer, Neil Bonnet, just Jack Ingram, just to name a few that were there. So Terry going from there to Texas, racing against them, but basically spent all the money. So my dad we couldn't afford to go anywhere racing except for maybe CC Speedway. We were kind of out. So that's when Billy Hagan came in and said, "Hey, we'll guarantee you $350 if you show up, and if you win more than $350, then I don't pay you. But if you win less than $350, I'll pay you." Okay, so it was a good deal for him, but then it gave my dad a guarantee to go to the racetrack. So when that Billy Hagan gave Terry the break. So when Terry moved to North Carolina, he went to work for Billy Hagan as a mechanic, and Skip Manning drove the car. Well, Skip got word that Terry was a driver. He quit. So that's when Terry got to race the first race at Darlington, because he just went to work as a mechanic and learned. There's only 2 other people there. So then, right after that, my dad's like, "I got to get to North Carolina to be with my son, and we got to work, it's a job. It's this. So we packed up like the Beverly Hillbillies on a Friday afternoon. I swear to you, we packed the truck up, the camper. I had a pet duck. I brought it with me. We traveled all the way from Friday afternoon to North Carolina and just landed in Trinity, North Carolina. And my dad said, "This is where we're going to be. I'm going to work right here." And that's just how we landed here. So with, my dad being broke, my family being broke, opportunity for Terry to go work for a guy in North Carolina on a Cup car, just go work, me a mechanic. And then end up driving it. And as a family, we just hauled the mail on a Friday afternoon to North Carolina, uprooted and landed and went to school on Monday. And here we are, So that's kind of a nutshell how it went. But it's like a lot of stories. It's adversity led to something different, Yeah. If we could afford to race there, would we race there for 20 more years? Maybe, I mean, you just never know. But, my dad, my dad had goals and, but we didn't know it was going to go that way, but it did. So we just, so adversity and Beverly Hillbillies. So I guess we didn't find the oil or the gold, but we got here.
I guess eventually you found the gold, right? You got that shiny hardware and nobody was broke anymore.
Yeah, I guess it did work out.
What about the duck? What was that all about? Are you an animal lover? And was that kind of the beginning of it?
Yeah, we've had dogs and all that stuff. And we had a pet crocodile for a while, which was kind of weird, but we had a duck. I had a pet duck, and I just kind of, I had it when I was a little kid and kept it for many years, and it would follow me like a dog. So we moved to North Carolina. We put it off in a pond out here. So anyway, yeah, animal lovers, yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so let's look back at your racing, especially the year you won the championship, 2000. I looked through that year, Bobby, and the names that you were racing against is just incredible. I mean, from Rusty Wallace, Dale Earnhardt, I mean, you name them, the list goes on and on. That year you won the championship, Dale Earnhardt actually finished second to you. Take me back to those moments, racing against, I guess, Dale in particular, but those guys, and what your relationship was like with them on track and maybe off if you hung with any of them.
Yeah, I can tell you that, again, over the past year, looking back and reflecting on your life and your career to go to the Hall of Fame, and you think about all those years that, you can name so many names that are in the Hall of Fame that I raced with. And you kind of scratch your head and you're like, dang, I didn't realize all that took place at that time. Because you were just, hey, I'm focused on winning, trying to win, da da da. So, and I think that Mark Martins, Earnhardt, Dale Jarrett's, my brother, Ernie Irvin. I mean, you just think of all Rusty. You think of all the names and all those names in that time that I got to race with. Now you look back on it, you're like, I mean, at the time you're just, you're doing it. And the time, and now you look back and you're like, holy smokes, that's freaking amazing, And so, and today's probably a little different world. We were back then. We kind of hung out the motorhome lot, usually with Kenny Schrader and Rick Mast, but which was
Trouble.
great. But yeah, trouble. So, but you hung out with people, you did appearances, you did stuff like that, and you talked to people, or you'd go to somebody for help or advice. But I think that it was funny because Earnhardt always has, obviously the Intimidator nickname, and I remember going to his farm. I think it was either in '99 or 2000. I think it was '99, and he took me around his farm. We just hung out for half a day. We had a meeting there in his office, and then we went. He took me around his farm in his truck, and we were looking at deer, we're looking at this, we're looking at that, and went by his old bush shop, and just he showed me everything. It's like, man, that's cool. I mean, this is really cool. So um, I just remember that being, he didn't have to do that. So, and I mean, I raced against him when I was 18 years old one time at Caraway. And, and he helped me get my ride at Gibbs. I mean, people don't really know that, but he actually, he was very instrumental in telling Gibbs, you need to get him. If he's going to leave, you need to get him. And I was standing there looking at him. I was like, he said that to him, and I'm like, holy crap, he just said that. That's pretty awesome. And it worked out. You know what I mean? That wasn't the only reason why, but I mean, he was trying to do that. So as we fast forward a little bit to 2000, and throughout, from my time in the, even the Busch Grand National Series all the way up, I mean, he was always you always learn something from Earnhardt. So anyway, long story short, get to 2000 and winning, racing with him for the championship and beating him at the end was really week in, week out. I mean, it was like nobody else was on the racetrack but him and I. It seemed like that's all there was, because every weekend it was like, who's going to do? We got to beat him, and all this stuff. And I thought at Darlington at the end for the Southern 500 was probably the most pivotal race for me, because I crashed in practice, throttle hung wide open, crashed in practice, qualified a backup car like 38, started the race, didn't know what to expect, moved up through there, rain comes, dries up, rain comes, dries up, rain comes, pit, don't pit, Makar and I are yelling at each other, pit, don't pit, I think it's going to rain, don't pit, who pit, should have pitted, all right, no, don't pit, oh, no, we need a pit, no, we don't need a pit, it was just crazy back and forth. Ended up coming to pits, left pit road, leading the race. Here comes the biggest downpour ever, floods the track, and the race is over, and I win. Earnhardt sits third. He comes up behind me after the race is over, beat my back bumper off, and I can look in the mirror and he's shaking his fist. But I can tell he's smiling in there. He's not smiling, but he's shaking his fist like, I can't believe you won this race. And to me, that was like, we actually were down, but we didn't get out. We got above it. You know what I mean? And I remember, media saying, hey, are you worried about all that? I'm not worried about nothing, man. I was lying through my teeth. I was so nervous. I was lying my way out of it, and I was so nervous getting in, week in and week out. I'm like, no pressure all abound. So anyway, so we get to Homestead and we're able to win the race and the championship. And he was, he was so cool about it, and, congratulatory and all that stuff. But I just thought for him he's obviously, when you rank him up in the top 5 and top 10, top 3, top 2, top 1, he's the guy. So to be able to go out there and do that when he was still at his, prime, I think, he was awful hard to beat. It was amazing when I look back on it, how those years were. So, and that year was.
So Dale Jarrett's leaving Gibbs. They're looking for a driver, and Dale Earnhardt says, this is your guy. What do you think Dale saw in you? What did he like enough about you to go to another team owner and say, you should put this guy in that seat?
I don't know that answer. I'm just assuming that it was, he probably saw that, saw me enough in the Busch Grand National Series or late model series where, at the time, there's still a lot of drivers, but yet he probably saw the last name, but also saw that, hard work, and just accomplishment through hard work. And, your desire and all that stuff probably laid into it. I would imagine. I guess so. Um, I mean, I mean, I didn't have a. I mean, we weren't like that, so it wasn't that. It was just more or less like race. And to be honest with you, I mean, you race somebody clean. Trust me. I was at Bristol one time. I looked in the mirror. He's behind me, and I look at his eyeballs, and I go, I'll let you go because you're going to knock somebody out of the way to get there, and I'll just follow you because you're going to knock me out of the way. So, but I think some of that time is being smart and respectful, and he probably saw that. I mean, he probably saw that. Hey, he knows if he's not in a good. He knows if his car is not that fast, he's not going to mess with it. That's probably some of it as well.
What a good guy to have on your side.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. So let's, life right now. Your wife, Kristin, looks like she is in some great shape. She works out all the time. I love looking at her pictures. You look like you're in good shape. Is she your trainer? You guys train together?
She is my motivator trainer. Yes. We work out together as much as possible, and usually in the afternoon. She's an afternoon person. Workout. I'm usually a morning guy. But we got a mountain bike trail that we're building back here. We'll either do the in the gym or we'll go ride out on the road, ride bikes on the road. So we try to stay as active as possible. So Kristin has been a world professional athlete, cycling for years, did bodybuilding for a while. So she's a swimmer to start with. So as far as her whole life and career, she's been active and in shape as far as swimming, cycling, bodybuilding, whatever it might be. So that's in our DNA as far as being that way. And then for me, I told her a while ago, I said, and I am more sore in places than I usually am because it's not riding a bike and it's not this, that, but it's out working outside, which I call farm fit. So I'm not farm fit. I don't think I'm farm fit, but I'm getting there. So, but we do stay active and we do stay busy. And we try to work out and stay in as good a shape as possible, but yet we're still enjoying life. So we're not as we used to, baked chicken, spinach, a regimen. We kind of have our workout regimen, but we're still enjoying life more so than just working out and being a phenom on that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but we do enjoy it. We're having a good time.
Sounds like you guys are a really good match for each other. It's nice to have somebody that motivates you to stay healthy and make the right decisions in life.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But we do push each other in that part.
Now you have two grown kids. And did either one of them ever have an interest, Bobby, in racing and following in your footsteps?
My son, we raced quarter midgets with my son Tyler for a little bit. Um, he was interested in it for a while, but I'll be honest with you, I was probably more interested in it for him.
Mm.
So when he said, "Hey, I don't think I want to do this," I'm like, "What do you mean you don't want to do this? You got to do this, right?" And then after a couple of weeks, I went, "Okay, you really don't want to do this? No, so I want to do something else." So I realized then I was doing it for me.
Mm.
I mean, it was more for me than it was for him. So, but yeah, he did race for a while. He did race. My daughter Madison, I had her a quarter midget, and she never really raced. She just practiced some. But it was harder. I mean, maybe I didn't. Maybe I pushed too hard, not hard enough. But they both. I mean, they know about race. I mean, they're not. They're not just distance from racing. They know they keep up with racing, but they didn't want to follow me to that point. And then after looking back at it, okay, this might be okay because it's so difficult being the kid of somebody that's already successful in it. You're always, looked at as far as comparison wise. So I look back on it now and I go, well, that was a good time, but I'm glad that they chose what they wanted to do and not what I wanted to do.
Mm.
So I mean, that to me, at the end of the day, I think that was the right thing to do. But I for sure was trying to push him in the direction I wanted him to go in. But my son actually graduated from law school last week, and my daughter will graduate from college next spring. So, hey, well, everything's good.
Congratulations. Well, last question is just about your gig now, TV gig. You've done a great job with the analysis, being in studio, obviously, for race coverage and for Race Hub. What has that been like for you, just making that transition to being in the studio and talking about the sport?
Well, when you think about being 2 years old at a racetrack, all the way to being in a simulator last fall or late last summer, doing work for the next gen car, it's like, okay, you encompass your life, and you still have a passion for this. You didn't get to a point and say, you know what, I'd rather not do this. I wake up every day and I still want to do it. I mean, I'm too old to do that, but I like to do what I'm doing on TV side because it gives me a point. It gives me something to talk about that I've been there and done that. I enjoy so much. I mean, I still bleed NASCAR. I still bleed racing. I still want to talk about it and be a part of it and watch it and help it grow or whatever the case may be, or answer the questions, or talk about how the feelings are going to be into turn one at Darlington, come say for instance, come Sunday, for a lot of guys, and aspect of the people part about it. And so I love that part. Now I can say years ago when I was racing, you never would have got me in this point. But as
Mm.
time went on, I went, man, that looks like a lot of fun. That looks like something I want to do because, again, I'm a robot. I wake up, I'm in racing. I go to bed. I wake up, I'm one about. You talk about racing, and I could talk your ear off. If you want to talk about the grass growing, I'm like, I don't care, just plant it. I don't care. So there's a good way. It's a good way for me to be able to do what I still love to do, and whether it's race hub, race day, hub weekend, and I know we're in a little bit of a goofy situation, but I think we're getting back to some normalcy on studio stuff here in the next few weeks. So looking forward to that. But I just love being a part of a group that loves racing, that wants to make sure that people enjoy getting to watch it and listen to what is being told about it. So I love what I'm doing now as much as I did then. So
That's awesome. There's nothing that can, I mean, the stories that you can tell. I mean, people love that, and that's why you are so successful at being an analyst. So, Bobby, thank you so much. I learned a lot, like I've been doing with each driver I talk to, and reliving your highlights. It's been fun.
well, thank you, Jamie. Thanks for letting me share that with you. I feel like some stories I tell, new stories that I might tell that maybe I don't tell all the time. So, and it's not that I forget them. It's just that you asked the right question for me to bring it out. So thanks for helping me bring that out. And it's great to see you through Zoom, and can't wait to see you at a track or in studio sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.